You already know the shape of this story: a maze, a monster at the center of it, a girl with a ball of thread. It is one of the oldest pictures the Western mind carries, and almost all of it is true. But the maze is not the point of this myth. It never was. Strip away the monster, and what is left is a story about a father, a son, and a color. The color of a sail, seen from very far away, by a man who could not wait one more hour. It begins with a childless king. Aegeus ruled Athens and had no heir, and a man with no heir in the ancient world is a man with an expiry date. So he went, as they all went, to Delphi and put his question to the oracle. The answer came back in the usual way, not as advice, but as a riddle sharp enough to cut yourself on. Do not loosen the neck of the wineskin until you reach the height of Athens. Aegeus did not understand it. On the road home he stopped at Troezen, at the house of King Pythias, and Pythias understood it perfectly. The riddle told the king of Athens not to lie with a woman until he was home. Pythias said nothing. He filled his guest with wine and sent his own daughter, Aethra, to him that night. If a grandson of his was to sit on the throne of Athens, so much the better. Before he left, Aegeus did something strange, and it is the hinge the whole myth turns on. He took his sword and his sandals, rolled a great boulder aside, laid them in the hollow beneath, and let the stone fall back. If she bears a son, he told Aethra, say nothing of me. When he is strong enough to move this stone, send him to Athens with what he finds under it. Then he went home and told no one. The boy was called Theseus. He grew up in Troezen, not knowing whose son he was, and in some versions of the tale, not entirely certain that he was mortal at all, because Aethra had waded out to the island of Sphaeria that same night, and Poseidon had come to her there. The Greeks were comfortable with this. A hero could have two fathers, one who gave him the throne and one who gave him the sea. At 16, his mother walked him up the hill and showed him the stone. He put his shoulder to it and rolled it aside, and there they were, corroded, waiting, a father's handwriting in bronze. And then Theseus made the choice that tells you exactly who he is. The safe way to Athens was by sea, 3 days with a fair wind. The land road around the Saronic Gulf was infested with murderers. He took the road. What happened on that road became famous, and it follows one rule so consistently that it is clearly the point of the telling. Every man Theseus met on the road killed travelers by a signature method, and Theseus killed every one of them by their own method. Periphetes, who beat men to death with a bronze club, beaten to death with his own club. Sinis, who bent 2 pines to the ground and tore men apart between them, torn apart between 2 pines. Siren, who made travelers kneel to wash his feet on a cliff road and kicked them into the sea, kicked into the sea. And Procrustes, the most famous of them, who offered strangers a bed and made them fit it. The tall ones cut down, the short ones hammered out to length. Theseus made him fit his own bed. This is not sadism. It is the oldest legal idea humanity has, the punishment written in the shape of the crime. And the Athenians told it to say, our founder brought law to the road. He reached Athens a stranger and a celebrity, an unknown young man who had cleared the Isthmus road. And in the palace, the sorceress Medea, now the king's consort, knew exactly who he was, and knew what his arrival meant for her own son's inheritance. She persuaded Aegeus that this popular young hero was a threat, and at the welcome feast, she put a cup of poisoned wine in front of him. Theseus reached out, and then, to carve the meat, drew his sword and laid it on the table. Aegeus saw the blade he had buried under a rock in Troezen 16 years before. He struck the cup from his son's hand so hard the wine burned a hole in the floor. Father and son recognized each other about 4 seconds before a murder. Medea fled Athens that night and never returned to it. Theseus had a father, a city, and an inheritance. He also inherited a debt. Years earlier, Androgeos, son of King Minos of Crete, had come to Athens for the games, won everything, and died there. Murdered, the Cretans said. Minos brought a fleet, and behind the fleet came plague and famine, and Athens broke. The terms of surrender were not gold, they were children. Every 9th year, some say every year, Athens sent 7 youths and 7 maidens to Crete. They were not executed. They were put into a building, and the building had something living in it. The Athenians had heard the name. Everyone in the Aegean had heard the name, the Minotaur. Where the monster came from is a story Crete told against itself. Minos, contesting the throne, had asked Poseidon for a sign. "Send a bull from the sea, and I will sacrifice it back to you." The bull came, white, enormous, unmistakable. Minos took the throne, and then he looked at the animal, and it was too magnificent to burn, and he kept it and sacrificed a lesser beast instead. A god had been shorted. Gods keep accounts. The punishment did not fall on Minos, it fell on his wife. Poseidon set in Pasiphae an unnatural desire for the bull, and the royal craftsman Daedalus, who built anything asked of him and asked no questions, built the device that allowed it. What was born of it had the body of a man and the head of a bull, and it was given a name that means starry one, Asterion. History remembers it only as the Minotaur, the bull of Minos. Even its name belongs to the man who caused it. It could not be killed. It was the king's shame made flesh, and killing it would have admitted what it was. It could not be shown, so Minos ordered Daedalus to build a prison so intricate that its own architect could barely find the way out. Not a cage, a question with no answer, the Labyrinth. When the tribute came due again, Theseus, newly a prince, newly the heir, volunteered to be one of the 7. His father begged him not to. He went anyway. And at the harbor, Aegeus gave him the instruction that kills him at the end of this story. The ship sails under a black sail, as it always has. If you live, if you come home, change it. Put up a white sail, and I will know from the cliff before you land. In Crete, the daughter of Minos watched the Athenians brought ashore, and Ariadne saw Theseus, and that was the end of her father's kingdom. She went to Daedalus, the man who had built the thing, and asked him the only question that mattered, is there a way out? And Daedalus, who had built a maze no one could solve, told her the truth. There is. It is embarrassingly simple. Take a ball of thread. Tie one end at the door. He went down with a sword and a clue of wool and let the thread run out behind him. The accounts of what happened at the center disagree. Some say he cut its throat, some say he beat it to death with his bare hands, and there is an old, uncomfortable strand of the story where the thing at the center does not fight back very much at all. What they all agree on is that it took a long time in the dark with no one watching. And then he did the thing that made him a hero rather than a killer. He followed the thread back. He brought out the other 13. 14 children had gone into that building. 14 walked out of it. They ran for the ships, and Theseus had the hulls of the Cretan fleet holed at the waterline so no one could follow, and Ariadne went with them because she had just betrayed her father, her brother, and her country in a single night, and there was nothing left on that island for her. They stopped at the island of Naxos, and when the ship sailed again, Ariadne was not on it. This is the wound in the middle of the myth, and the Greeks never agreed on how to dress it. In one version, Theseus simply abandoned her asleep on the beach. In another, Athena came to him in the night and ordered him to leave her. In the kindest version, the god Dionysus claimed her for himself and set her crown among the stars, where it still is. Take whichever version you can live with. The mechanics of the story are the same in all of them. The girl who solved the maze is left on a beach, and the man who used her solution sails home to be king. And whatever happened on Naxos, something went out of him there, because on the last leg of the voyage, in sight of Attica, Theseus forgot the sail. Aegeus had been on the cliff every day. Some say at Sunion, where the temple still stands over that drop. Some say from the Acropolis itself. He had been watching the horizon for a change of color for weeks. And on the day the ship came back, he saw black and understood that the tribute had been paid again, and that his son was dead, and that he had let him go. He did not wait for the ship to land. He threw himself from the rock into the water, and the Greeks named that water after him, the Aegean. So Theseus came home a hero, a monster killer, a liberator of children, and a king, because his father's body was in the sea and the throne was empty. He had killed the thing in the labyrinth and lost the 2 people who got him out of it. He ruled well, by all accounts. The Athenians credited him with drawing the scattered villages of Attica into a single city, and with handing power to the people. and told each other, centuries later, that democracy had been the gift of a king. And there is one last piece of him that outlived all of it. The Athenians kept his ship in the harbor for centuries as a memorial, and as each plank rotted, they replaced it with a new one, until not a single original timber remained. And the philosophers began to argue about whether it was still the ship of Theseus, and have not stopped arguing since. It is a fitting relic, a man remembered for a maze, preserved as a puzzle with no way out. The monster was never the hard part, the thread was never the answer. It was only ever the way back, and he was the one who let go of it.